All right, welcome back to section 4 of chapter 17. Today we're just going to cover the first half of it, and there will be quite a few supplemental videos to go with this, so make sure you do watch those to help better your understanding of what we are currently talking about. So, in section 4, we're going to talk about the campaign for civil rights accelerating after World War II as African Americans demand justice and equality. So the civil rights movement, we're just going to kind of dip our toes in it right now. We'll get more to it later, I believe, with chapter 20. Um, and so, with this and the civil rights movement, up until this point, it hasn't been overly successful. And it won't be until the 1960s that you really see a lot of changes. So we will start with a few minor things that are going to happen right after World War II. So since Congress will fail to act to meet the concerns of African Americans between 1946 and 1948, Truman will have to take action on his own. So in 1948, Truman banned discrimination in hiring of federal employees. In other words, at this point, you can no longer discriminate based on race, whether or not you're hiring someone for a federal job. And Truman will also end segregation and discrimination in the armed forces. I will have a video linked that explains this a little bit further and in more depth. But these are the two actions Truman will take immediately after World War II. Um, and there will be another huge change in 1947 coming up that will really change society as a whole. So if you notice here, this is a picture of the 1946 Brooklyn Dodgers. Every single player on the team is white. Here's a picture of the 1947 Brooklyn Dodgers. There is one major difference, and that is the inclusion of a new player that will be brought up for his rookie season in 1947. And on the left here is Branch Rickey, and so he will be the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers, and that man and that rookie brought up will be Jackie Robinson. So, racial segregation in society was challenged in 1947 when Jackie Robinson became the first African American to play baseball in the major leagues with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Dodgers general manager Branch Rickey will choose Robinson for his willingness to stand up to racial injustice. So, that YouTube video will be linked, and in there they make a point that when Jackie was in the Army during World War II, um, he didn't like all the racial injustices against him. He stood up for himself and others, and this will get him a discharge, an honorable discharge from the military. Um, and so this video is a little bit more in depth. And if you wish to know more about the early years of Jackie Robinson playing baseball, then go check out the movie 42. I'm sure many of you have seen that. So Robinson will also become Rookie of the Year in 1947 and the MVP in 1949. His grace, dignity, and talent will open the door for other African Americans to follow him into the world of professional sports. So, yes, we did have some African American Olympians, especially in 1936 Olympics in Berlin. That was huge for us. But as far as the major leagues for mainstream sports, Jackie Robinson will be the first African American to break that color barrier. And because of him and his bravery and the fact that he never retaliates to the racial injustices he faces, it's going to open the door for everybody. And that's why on April 15th of every year, they have Jackie Robinson Day in the Major League Baseballs or Major League Baseball. And also, Jackie's number 42 is the only number universally retired across all of baseball. And so the greatest civil rights victories, though, will come in the courts, where the NAACP will finally get the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson decision that will establish the separate but equal segregation policy that's been in place for the last 58 years. So Plessy versus Ferguson was passed, and it created the doctrine of separate but equal, where as long as your facilities are equal, you can have separate facilities for different races. However, it's going to be ultimately found that separate is not actually equal no matter what you do, just because you're denying those. So here's a little background. The whole thing will start May 17th, 1954, when lawyer Thurgood Marshall will convince the Supreme Court that segregation of public schools was unconstitutional in the case of Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. Um, so during this court case, basically Thurgood Marshall was able to prove that based on the 14th Amendment and equal protection under the law, that these separate facilities and separate schools were not equal in giving the equal opportunity to African American students that white students had received. And so, because of this, in Brown versus Board of Education, the whole separate but equal will be completely shattered all across the United States. And the biggest impact it will have will be on the South. Um, so we're going to talk about a couple cases coming up. But within a year of the court case being basically ruled in favor of Brown, courts will order local school boards to desegregate with all deliberate haste. So basically, starting in 1955, all schools have to desegregate as quickly and as safely as possible. Um, if you watch Remember the Titans, they are a school that has been desegregated as a result of Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas. And now there will be quite a bit of resistance to this whole desegregating of schools. And so here's a video clip that you guys will have to watch. I will post that as well. But angry Southern whites will react with fear and violence to Brown versus Board of Education. They're afraid of what mixing the races will do to their society and culture that they've had established for nearly 100 years after the Civil War and African Americans were freed. So the first instance will be of violence will be in 1957 in Little Rock, Arkansas, when Governor Orville Faubus refused to integrate or bring different races together. Central High School and posted Arkansas National Guard troops to keep all African American students out. So the governor will activate the state National Guard, which he can do, and he uses that National Guard to prevent African American students from coming to Central High School like they have been ordered to. And this group will go on to be called the Little Rock Nine. So there'll be 9 African American students trying to do this. Now, Dwight Eisenhower is not going to be thrilled about this. So what he's going to do is he's going to meet this challenge to presidential and constitutional power by placing the National Guard under the federal control and to have the new National Guard that was preventing troops from, or sorry, the National Guard troops that were preventing African American students from getting into the school to escort these students to school now. So now these 9 students will be under presidential order and National Guard protection as they are escorted to and from school for a significant period of time. Um, and so I do have a video for this as well. And when you watch this video, it's important to keep in mind the age of these students isn't much different from the age you guys are right now. And the amount of hate that they faced just because they wanted to go to school and receive an education. When you're watching this video, you might have to watch it twice to catch some of this, but keep an eye on what the crowd is doing and saying, and the signs and the different things and motives they have um, in the background. And so it's going to really be kind of an eye-opening experience to what we will be talking about um, during the civil rights movement chapter. And so just keep that in mind and have an open mind with it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You are required to do the Google form. It's only a couple questions. And then also in the question packet, I'd like you guys to do questions 39 through 43. So with that, have a good Thursday. I hope you enjoy the nicer weather. And we just have one more lesson tomorrow before spring break starts.